Hello, all you beautiful Substack subscribers. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just wanting to come on because oftentimes I'm someone who likes to kind of be behind the scenes. This has been very true for the majority of my work. Um, right now, several of you know me as a personal chef. Many of you know me as an herbalist. Some of you know me as an astrologer, and all of you know me as a writer via my Substack. And on here, I realized like I've had this kind of give and then like hitting these creative blocks within my writing, feeling really inspired at certain points in time, and then feeling like, oh man, but if I start writing off topic from what I have been writing about, then, people are going to be like, what the fuck is this woman about? And I think there's been like a certain pressure to be like, have this cohesive, linear thinking that interweaves all of my work. And there is a through line. There is a unique intersection where astrology and regenerative agriculture and um, environmental activism and wellness and body image and astrology and mythology all do converge. There is very much a through line there, but sometimes it's even challenging for me to, or I feel myself begin to block myself towards really being able to express because I want it to be digestible for the reader and something that's practical and usable for everybody. But when I do that, then I limit myself. And so the whole reason of getting onto Substack in the first place was like there are things that I think about a lot. There are a lot of experiences that I've had in my life that I think can be useful for people and be useful in the way that we're kind of navigating through challenging times. And a lot of this is about how do we see life not so like finite, but like we are part of an evolving ecology of time that is nonlinear, that is circular, that we are regaining so much wisdom from ancient traditions and myths and modes of like the studying of astrology, which is really the study of cycles and the ability to look at time and to understand archetypal energies that come through different eras. Um, and the same thing, we live through these periods of time within our own body, within the earth that we live in and how we're navigating our lives. It impacts us very much holistically. And I think this is like I've run into these issues in every single one of my career. I would have what you might call like a portfolio career. It began with studying nutrition and herbalism and psychology, thinking I'm going to go and, be specifically a dietitian, but feeling like, okay, but, this allopathic way of working with people with food is not the whole story. So then, studying holistic nutrition and being able to look at bioindividuality and be able to work with people on like their specific challenges and see what works for them, which is a lot slower of a process. And then through that, realizing like, oh, so many of the issues that we're having with our relationship with food is because of our relationship with the planet, because of our relationship with agriculture and what agriculture has become. All of these, profit driven entities, whether it's medicine, whether it's food, whether it's governmental, what have you, where it's like so often because of capitalism and this need to have this exponential growth, we're actually beginning to atrophy. And the same thing happens within our own lives, whether it's in our relationships or our health. And we're at this really incredible, I think, peak moment where people have realized the systems are not working, the systems need to be re-envisioned. But the re-envisioning of the world has to begin at the individual level. Because if we're not shifting ourselves, if we're not really trying to get to the root of what is it that nourishes me so deeply, then how can I contribute back to the world? And so, that led me into the study of permaculture and agriculture and doing like beginning an edible landscape company. Because again, I was just like, each of these different things that I was studying was filling in a different gap that I was feeling out in the world, where I felt really that I was not being nourished by life because I was like, okay, studying food, studying all the different, macros and micronutrients, but still like, yeah, but that only feeds me so much. That only nourishes me so much. And it's so much bigger than me because these things are systemic. And, permaculture was really like bringing in principles of how are we relating to our lives? How are we relating to our communities? How are we relating to the technologies that we use? It talked a lot about like how to have personal responsibility and using technologies, not like totally adverse, but appropriate technology. Where's the appropriate application of technology? And so permaculture, just opened up this whole other field into my life. And then studying plant medicines and psychedelics, which is, in and of itself, mind manifesting, being able to realize like your mind is not fixed, your personality is not fixed. It is malleable and plastic. And, that brought me into astrology and the learning of cycles and energetics and how this archetypal realm that is really the basis of so many like meaning making systems, whether it's astrology, whether we look at the tarot or just Jungian psychology, all of these things of like, how are we tapping into this archetypal realm um, and seeing our lives, it's not so personally, but really as this living arc of experience. And we can learn so much through understanding how these myths progress through time. And then also choosing if I am a character in my life, because we are different characters in all the other areas of our lives. I've noticed that. And this is why, again, I've had such a hard time create what I feel creating a cohesive Substack is because I felt like, okay, I have to fit in a box. I either have to talk about wellness or I have to talk about like body image and disordered eating stuff and, our relationship with food and our relationship with material, being in a material body. Or I have to talk about like, neuroscience and more scientific stuff, or like, oh, or I have to talk about ecology and it felt so restricting. It felt so restricting. And so the reason I've created a Substack is like, how do I allow myself to create what wants to be created without having to dumb it down, or to try to make it super, um, I guess to fit it into a tight and neat box. So over the next however long it's going to last, um, I'm going to be experimenting with my Substack and what shows up here. Some of it may resonate with people, some of it might, be not of interest at all. But it's a way of me allowing my creativity and what wants to come through me to have full range of experimentation. And people can choose what it is that they want to consume of this content. And what if it they realize like, okay, this is something that actually is not for me. Because again, like we can serve as a chef, I know that I'm going to serve a dinner and not everybody's going to love it. There's no meal that I've ever made that everybody's been like, that's been a 10 out of 10. That might not be true, but like, for instance, like maybe someone would prefer a steak dinner to a chicken dinner, but they go to a dinner that is already a steak dinner. And so that's what they're receiving, even though it might not be their favorite. But I can be like, all right, through my creativity, I can take the ingredients that I have, the menu that was selected, and I can create it the most beautifully and harmoniously that I know how. And how people take it in, how people are nourished by it is up to them. And if you want to experiment, if you are not here for the astrology stuff, but you want to, participate in one of the astrology classes that I'll post on here. You can dip your toe in. You can experiment. You can see, like, take yourself out of the box of like, I'm someone who doesn't believe in this stuff. And you can see for yourself. Um, but yeah, that's really what I just wanted to get to with this is kind of introducing myself. I'm Jeanette Nettie, Nettles, Chef Nettles. I am the writer behind the scenes who oftentimes likes to live there. I am also the teacher of these classes that will be coming out that have already been pre-recorded a season ago, but I'm like sitting on this material and I'm like, you know what? I had like four people who received this information, and I think that there are other people who might benefit from it. And over time, what I'm hoping is that as I assimilate the medicine and the stories that have come through my own life that I've gleaned a lot of wisdom from. But I'm hoping that through me putting it through into the Substack realm, that it might be able to be digested and fermented for other people, that it will plant seeds, even for your own creativity, or even an allowance to experiment with whatever it is that you're creating and realize that, like, you got to create for you. As well as if if it's a business, if something that like you are, tailoring it towards the people that are your audience, um, fantastic. But as I've found myself in very much like this rut or in this place of like, no, I got to create a cohesive system before I put it out there. No, I have to have it refined before I put it out there. Perfectionism has been my limitation. And so I am telling perfectionism that she can sit here next to me for a little while I tell the stories about how to move through challenges in order to grow in whatever area of your life it is. So if you're here for a recipe, if you're here for astrology, if you're here for whatever rants I tend to go on, thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the allowance of me to be able to be on this creative journey with all of you. And I'm hoping that through this, there is a cohesive system that comes through, and that it acts as not just prompts in order to nourish yourself in physical ways, but to really realize that true nourishment is the things that light us up in life. And that's one of the biggest challenges for me as a chef and somebody who works with people with nutrition is that there's so much focus on what it is that we're bringing into our bodies in the form of food, but we're not taking the time to actually assimilate it and sit with it and be able to evaluate it and to build memories around it, because it becomes a mechanism of control. It becomes a mechanism of like, all right, if A and B come into me, I'm going to get C out of it. And that's not often how it works. We can't repeat other people's things, but what we can do is we can bring these archetypal images into ourselves. We can bring these stories into ourselves. We can bring the other information into ourselves, and we can digest and assimilate and decide for ourselves whether or not it's nourishing or not. And then we can bring that out into the world to say, okay, what in my life is actually like deeply sustaining me? What are things that I've held on to because I've been conditioned to believe that they're the right thing? And I know this is very broad because you really can apply this to any area of your life, whether it's physical food or whether it's stories or whether it's the career that you're in, whether it's the relationships that you're in, to be able to take it in as information and not take it so personally, but be like, all right, what is this teaching me about myself? And where are the places I feel contracted versus open? And if I allow myself to open a little bit more, if I allow myself to not have to exist within this box of the identity that I've created, what are the things that are truly nourishing me in those moments? So, welcome to Nourishing Roots. Great to meet you. any of you that are here and listening. Um, yeah, moving forward, I think a few things I'll be continuing to write. I will be posting monthly astrology classes, and these will really get into some of the architecture um, of the different signs and seasons of the zodiac. I probably will not be speaking directly to the transits and things that are happening at the time because I really want it to be allowance of people being able to witness the patterns that might be emerging within their environment and in their lives and see how these archetypes are showing up for them rather than being like, I guess, more prescriptive about this is what you should be experiencing, but really questioning and asking people to, like, all right, through these different things, how are you witnessing them in your environment? How are you witnessing them in your own body? How are you witnessing them in the people you're involved with in life? And then for people to really be able to, because that's the thing. Otherwise, concepts are just concepts unless we bring them into lived reality. So that's that little update. If you are looking to have an astrology session, that is available. Beginning to take readings in the month of May. So that will be opening up for, I probably have time allotted for like 4 sessions a month for readings. And um, if you want to figure out more about that, you can go to my website. I have kind of a unique approach when it comes to the astrological chart, just in terms of the philosophy that I bring towards it. I practice kind of a merger of both uh, medical astrology, Hellenistic, and then some modern astrology will come into that. So yeah, if you're looking for that, also reach out about um, sessions. Other parts of it, I'm teaching cooking classes if you are local in Boulder, and there will probably be another. I'm actually not going to announce that yet. So take care. Happy Libra full moon. Something very cool that I will share with you as this recording is ending. My brother gifted me this watch. I'm going to take it off because it's really incredible. He got it for me for Christmas, but I didn't know what it was or when it was going to come. My brother works for a leather company, so he makes watch straps and wallets and belts and things of that nature. So it smells good, like new leather. But the watch itself is so incredible because um, you probably aren't going to be able to see it. But essentially, it's obviously a clock. It has the time, and then it has the moon cycle. And so it will cycle through the moon cycle. Right now, you can see it's at the full moon. And then it has the date, of course. But he said that this is a Seiko watch. So it's a Japanese company. Um, and this was like their popular design back in the 1980s. So I was born in the 90s, but maybe close to when I was born, early 90s. But this is one of the things that I am really, really loving at this moment. And it's interesting because it tracks time. So there's like Saturn is here as well as the moon cycles and all the little constellations kind of go through it as well. So, anyways, I hope you have a fantastic full moon. This moon is in Libra. It's on the axis between Aries and Libra, Aries being the season we're currently in, fire emerging, new beginnings, new starts, rebirths. I am, the claiming of I am, not as an identity, but as like a soul incarnate. I am. Um, Move with boldness, move with courage, but don't forget Libra, the ability to have equanimity and balance and to stand up for what's good and just and beautiful in the world. And not beauty and just the superficial way, but deep beauty of like what brings harmony into an ecosystem, and how can we balance that with our sense of self? How can we be in relationship with all of life without losing who we are? And what you'll eventually maybe learn is that you are all. All right, I'll leave you with that.